Hello everyone, and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. I have a 1v1 for you guys today between myself and Countdown Enjoyer, a battle of Brigadier Generals, and it's one that I didn't want to fight, so I'm not doing an opener for the town here. I'm not doing an opener for the town here. I'm not doing a Foxtrot Rush. I'm being a charming little pacifist fellow and not being aggressive here at all in Delta, Foxtrot, anything like that, because I have, well, a mechanized detachment that's going over to Alpha. So I'm playing as Scandinavia mechanized, and it's my favorite mech deck. It's actually the only mechanized deck that I play in any sort of competitive thing like ranked or tournaments or things like that. I'm not usually a fan of most mechanized decks. I miss the heavy tanks and the super heavies, I guess. But Scandi Mech, I don't know, I love it. It's one of my favorite decks in the entirety of Wargame. So as we get on the way here, Countdown Enjoyer was doing a little bit of a unusual opener, going pretty hard into Charlie. I mean, some Moto decks will do this, you'll see that relatively often, and there is a Rulecat 76, there is a Israeli BTR 152 TCM, so we know this is some flavor of Blue 4, and given that it's all wheeled stuff, it could even be Blue Moto. Now, this wasn't a ranked game, this was just a friendly, so I do actually know what deck it was, but we'll keep you guys in suspense just a little bit, although I think that largely answers it. Now, Blue Moto doesn't have really many open field sort of armored assets. There's a lot of zoning assets, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things like that, and I do believe they get the Leopard Verkenning, which is pretty scary for a Moto deck. But my whole idea here is basically have the M48A1s and the M41A1s to soak up motorized chaff, and then just take a fight where I know Moto doesn't want to fight, which is in the woods grind, in that sort of mechanized brawl where my infantry fighting vehicles will give me the upper hand. So that was the sort of intention here. We'll see if it works out. And Countdown Enjoyer, I mean, from his perspective, this looks pretty nice. He's gotten Foxtrot for free pretty much. He's gotten Delta pretty much for free. I don't have anything that he's seen in Alpha yet, so he's... We were actually, I think we were in voice at the time, and he was sort of going, well, I mean, what's going on? To which I can only say, sometimes it pays to do the unexpected. I wouldn't necessarily say, hey, this is a meta opener and you guys should all do it. No, far from that. But, you know, it was kind of fun. So, Leopard Verkenning's over here, and one of the things about delaying like this is that oftentimes it can make your opponent do their reinforcement into the wrong place. We see we're 3 minutes in, that's 300 or so points already on the board. There's been a plane buy, it looks like, and there's been some other buys as well, and we can actually see that happening right now, because I believe Countdown Enjoyer thought that I was going to push him in Foxtrot, because it seems the most reasonable thing, right? Is I have to go over here, because if I'm not making space in Delta, I have to make space in Fox, and just look at this line. This is a beautiful, beautiful, comfortable position to be in on Mudfight. I think you're really far up here, ATGMs and Recon and Norlands and Buffalo's 85, everything like that in the town and in Delta for zoning, a lot in Foxtrot, and I can definitely see why this zone would be something he'd be worried about, because this is not usually, like, if you get in this position in Mudfight, generally that's a really, really, really good thing. So, you know, I developed my game plan to say, hey, this is sort of what I want to have happen, this is sort of what I want to see him comfortable with, and then we're going to go over here. And all of a sudden, everything in Delta and Foxtrot is going to feel a lot tighter. And the thing is, too, if you can get into this side of Alpha relatively well, then it's often not the most difficult thing to retake this section of town, because you get fire from here, from here, from here, and just across the open ground from here. And you basically get a quarter of a full encirclement. Well, I mean, that's actually really far from a full encirclement. You get a really nice angle of fire support into this sort of town, and just rush it with some LHV, things like that, on a lot of expensive stuff, and there you go. Now, I would actually change the composition here. Don't mind the sirens if they do come through after audio post. I try on that stuff, but it's not perfect. The Ildatusgruppe were just a little bit goofy. I didn't really have a good reason for bringing these guys. I just thought, hey, what if he sends me some special forces or things like that? Ildatusgruppe do very well against that, but probably would have been nicer to keep these things a bit more cohesive and just wait for my other reinforcements to come in, because that's what Mechanized does. It builds, and then it just is everywhere and where you don't want it to be. So we do have a little bit of a plane dive there. I have horrible air detection, so I don't even know what that is, which is kind of goofy. But, you know, it's a Scout Defender. It's not something I like to give away for free all the time, but it could be worse. And here I think he has seen me across the open grounds. The M13A1s were visible, and of course there was the fire, the RBS shooting in at that plane. Now, I like the RBS 90. A lot of people don't really use them, though, because this option is expensive. It's 50 points for the IFV and for the Manpads team, but it is often very self-sufficient. So in response to that, Countdown Enjoyer is just taking everything he'd built up in Foxtrot and just saying, hey, well, okay, if he was wrong here about where I am, can he make use of that? And to sort of zone this out, I brought up a Fennec Toe too. Now, I don't love... Pardon me, a frog stuck in my throat. I don't love using helicopters in most decks. I think they're really fragile. Now, some things like the Patsu Tiger, yeah, I use that fairly often, by the way. Nice little SBS catch out here, which mops up some of his recon infiltrators. But in this particular case, I was trying to zone out the Leopard Verkennings because one of the costs of my heavy investment in Alpha is that the resulting heavy investment from Red into Foxtrot is not something I was prepared for, so that really did kind of suck. And you know, how do you deal with a Leopard Verkenning, given that the TOE2 is now dead? That's also expensive. I have RBS here, but they're here a little bit too late. Basically, I wasn't able to consolidate this as well as I would have liked to, and it's actually really awkward to hold in my experience. Like, Red has a lot of good avenues to push this section of woods. You can hold it, but it is a little bit challenging sometimes. Now, we're up 43 points to 0, and I'm buying a second CV, which is questionable because I'm currently being pushed, but this was something I thought the M48s could get that Verkenning, and the second they do, you know, it's not 100 points, but I figured it would be enough to bloody my opponent's nose, just enough for him to draw back, and especially if we can pick up things like the Milan team in the open, which is trying to get out of the open, moving across to support that push, which is no longer there, and you know, I figured let's just get some tick on there. It's going to take a little while for this guy to get over into Alpha, but look at this control in Alpha, right? So Panthers and Cobras will be a little unpleasant. My RBS are out of position because I don't know, just out of position. They should be sort of in an area to really more zone this section out, because even if helicopters come around this way, from sort of this position here, you can still fire at them with minimal adjustment. So a bit of a mistake on my part. Also, the Ildatos Grupa are not really... I don't know why I did this. Let's walk toward the Cobra, yeah? But I mean, STRFs can support this. The RBS are finally shooting in. Yeah, so I figured I could have this locked down pretty well, and we'll just cap here. And then if Foxtrot feels too cozy, I can just shove that a little bit that way. Then if I lock him out of Alpha, and maybe I get something sneaky into this side of Deltas, like, Moto has a hard time in the open. Mech doesn't necessarily have the best time in the open against unspec, because you can't match the supers and the heavy mediums, but, you know, against Moto, maybe I can, right? Against Moto, maybe something like the SGRV 103D can do really, really well if there's anything coming my way, especially if it's cheap stuff, if it's something like recoilless rifle jeeps, etc. Now, Double Stormer versus single Commando Marine, this is part of why I don't love Commando Marine. They're very expensive, but I tend to find their infantry to infantry performance is occasionally lackluster. Also, Ruakat 76s might not be French, but they do still have baguette armor, so SCRFs can get kills against them, which is a little bit goofy. I think we got one earlier, but not quite that second one. Oof, Garnos. Yeah, so, I mean, at this point, this is looking a little bit weird. This is the moment where I regretted that opener composition, because the Ildatos group really contributed nothing. I probably should have brought in a couple more. Well, I don't even know. I mean, it's an opener I'm fiddling with, and, well, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, some things to look at and fix. Now, this was actually a moment that I really did enjoy, though. So, Commander Marine, pick up my STRF. I've lost 3 of them in the last little bit of time, which is not exactly great. They're very expensive. But the Stormer versus Commander Marine, these guys have wheels for feet. So if I attack move, I'm going to lose them. They're going to get away. So instead of attack moving, I'm just taking my Stormer and just right-clicking, because I don't want them to ever stop. If they have to use their stabilizer, that's fine, as long as we can catch up to these guys, which I didn't know if we could. But they are panicked, and they were moving a little bit not straight directly away, which then let me course adjust. So if you saw right there, excuse me, I was moving this way, and then I see the Commander Marines are moving sort of at that angle, and we redirect there, and we're just able to get the kill there with those Stormer before the Commander Marine could get away, which was very nice. That was pretty comfortable. Now, Countdown Enjoyer is ticking +1, 43 to 29, and my Puff is just sort of circling here, getting better air detection than we had previously, and just being a little bit of an annoyance. We might build up an Air Force later, you're going to have to see, but what I want first, if we're going to be fighting against isolated Commander Marine and things like that in the woods, I want mortars. So we're going to take 3 NM125s, 3 HE, relatively fast aim time, and we're just going to, whenever we take an engagement with a Stormer or anything like that, we're just going to fire in and see what we can get, and suppress that infantry if we can, do our best with that. Now, one criticism I have of my own deployment here as well is I have a lot of assets in the middle that I'm not using, and this is something that's Claver, who's a really wonderful player, was sort of helping me with recently, just saying, you know, you buy all this stuff during the game, use it, make use of it, don't just leave it sitting there. And that was something, like, if I have a points advantage on kills, but my points advantage is sitting on the ground doing nothing, and actually Lord Pi told me a similar thing, if it's not actively doing something for you, it may as well be dead. Now, that's not necessarily the case if the... like, you do have to guard certain points, and if you don't, you can really be nastily surprised, but I think that the key is about the proportion. How much can you leave in a garrison? How much can you leave preparing for something unexpected? And how much do you bring with you to the fight? And I think here I'm a little over-invested in the garrison, but at the same time, this one proved to be important, because if those Verkennings had come through, if there had been a whole push into Charlie, that would have been really uncomfortable. It also would have prevented me from really getting too many reinforcements going this way, which was definitely a necessary thing, given that those first engagements frankly could have been a lot better. Now, the STRF 9040s, I'm using less of them now. I also removed the Panzerskita 90 because, frankly, I found that combination to be a little underwhelming. I'd rather just buy Stormer CV9030N, and then I get shocks instead of lines, and quite frankly, I think the CV9030N probably has the better of the two guns, unless you need the additional range, because of course the STRF does have a longer range bracket than the CV9030N, but it's a minor difference. It's not the end of the world, so... No, we're just buying more infantry, we're buying another manpads team here. This should be drawing back right now. I just was hoping to get a cheeky helicopter kill. And then we're getting another CV. Now this one is headed toward Delta. So my whole intention here, and that's why I'm buying the M41A1s right now, is just to, we're going to come up here, we're going to sit in this section of woods. This was not well timed, the M41 should have been first. And we're going to make a giant smoke wall, potentially, and just go up and cap. And there's a risk here. We've seen a Kurnos. If my opponent figures out where my CV is, it's gonna die. The Strip BB90 cannot survive a Kurnos, not with 2 top armor. Assuming it's direct hit, it might be able to survive something like a fire position. Yeah, RBS are overexposed. But, you know, that's not something I can necessarily count on, especially because there's probably sneaky recon infantry all the way through here. It's what I would do, and it's what I should have done, by the way. There's not really too much of an excuse for why I don't have some recon infantry, at least as far forward as here, in this section of woods. And, I mean, the False Community over on this side are nice, but they're just one team. Always have more recon. If you think you have enough, you're wrong. So, at this point, this is another moment where the Stormer would have been nice compared to the Panzerskita, especially because you can see over here, they really are very, very capable, even when damaged, even when isolated, and we take down that Cobra, which is a nice pickup, because the trading here has not been exactly perfect, and this is sort of, I think this was the moment where I was most worried in the entire game, because Foxtrot is red, Delta is red, Alpha, I had a nice position, but because of a couple bad trades and a couple instances of bad positioning, I've lost it. So it's not exactly all going to code. Now, I still do have hopes of taking this mechanized grind against a moto deck and doing well with that. You can see things like the Saxon. I mean, 10 points, wheeled, and barely even has a gun worth the name, and I'm bringing in boxes that have admittedly only 1 armor, but they have a 50 cal. They're more effective fire support than that. And 2 Kernoses. So these guys are expensive, 150 points apiece. That's 300 points in the air, except it's more than 300 as well. So this is actually 430, 510 in the air for my opponent, and that is a third of the income that we've had since the game started. Now, it doesn't include the opener, so that's actually 500 out of 2,500, so that's roughly 25%. But that's a huge, huge, huge air investment. It has to get payoffs, or it will be hurting my opponent very much so, more than he might like. So we do get a little bit of a tag on the Hornet, and the automatic shooting in does get the kill. So it's 135. It's 130 points down, but I did lose a block 15, so not exactly the best trade. I gave up 120 points of my own in the air, and to be quite honest, I probably shouldn't have taken that engagement. If you know your opponent is doing that big air investment, sometimes buying a single, even cheap ASF like that is not exactly the best. On the other hand, If I can pull away his ASFs, then maybe there's a chance there for something for later on in the game for those Kurnosses to become dead buys, assuming they don't get value out previously. So M41s, a couple of them getting a little bit smacked here. That was the Buffalo's 85, because of course they land their shots for my opponents, but never for me. But yeah, I mean, it was a little bit too impetuous, I think, to do that, and now we're building that smoke wall. So I had these guys grouped all three while I was doing fire support. Now I've split them, and I've individually targeted, or at least that was my intention, on enough of an area here to make a wide dispersed smoke cloud, making my own forest, as it were, to try and get that strip BV94, because I need to at this point. I need to get +1 tick. I'm behind 43 to 99, and I very much need to be actively fighting in alpha here against things like Commando Marine, which are a little uncomfortable, so we're moving back just a bit. And this STRF 9040 is going to be coming up to give some fire support here, assuming that I actually get my act together in time. And this is the thing, like, I had wanted by 15 minutes in to have a lot more stuff alive in alpha, but yeah, it didn't really turn out that way, so gonna do the best that we can. Now, Commander Marine against Stormer in the open, this is a bit of a blunder. It happens, right? So I say it's a blunder. This is not a game like chess where the information is perfect. This is a game where sometimes the difference between a blunder and the risk that won you the game is very, very small. And getting Commando Marine through on this side after some nice, successful combat from Red is not the riskiest thing. On the other hand, it just cost him Commando Marine. Right, so this is, it's a tough thing to deal with sometimes. Now, Kurnos coming in probably thought that I capped around here, and he is going to get in and out, killing a 5-point box. I honestly don't mind that. Now I know one of the two Kurnoses is on, Kurnos's? Kurnos? I think it means hammer, right? That's what Kurnos means. One of the two hammers, I guess, as it were, is on cooldown, but the other is not, so I still am not able to assume that I'm safe here, and the other Commando Marine do not get stunned by my mortars. They actually got through ahead of time. These guys, I mean, I swear, wheels for feet. Just so fast. So in order to counter that, I have 2 double stacks of FSK. These guys, I'm trying them instead of the light infantry. I tend to find that they're a little bit better infantry to infantry, and of course they do carry fewer of those. Ooh, this was risky. Strip BV90, M3A2, get a little bit lucky there that he missed, and this is not exactly going to code either. So I forgot about the M3A2. You know, when I was doing my math of, oh, I think I can zone out this sort of deck, I think I can handle this just fine, I completely forgot that Blue Moto gets an 80-point tracked IFV with TOE2s. 12 of them, just so that they don't run out. And honestly, I mean, geez, it was just, I really don't like that. Yeah, motorized, mechanized, armored, yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful tool, and it was used well here to zone me out. It's just kind of, like, really? Why do I have to deal with that in a Moto deck? It's part of why Blue Moto's so good, is it has a lot of those units that make individual Moto decks powerful, and make Blue Moto a whole different beast altogether. So, yeah, so there were some new players recently I was talking to who didn't really understand why you would even do coalitions, because the idea is, well, it limits your activation points, it limits the number of units you get per card, and the crucial thing to understand is that it's not always the number that you get per card. It's not always, like, you can have 100 units of infantry in your deck, and if you only ever use 20 of them, the other 80 are wasted. So it depends entirely on the map, it depends entirely on your other unit buys. You need the right composition, not just endless numbers. And so what blue and what red give up, as you know, all of us longer time players are very well aware, is they give up those activation points, but they do it to make the deck that much more deadly, especially in those initial engagements, because it is a risk. Also, I just was leaving these way too long. Also, probably bought too many FSK. Side note, it is a risk to have fewer cards and fewer units in your deck, and it does make you worse at grinds. It's one of the reasons that Blue Moto in particular, I think, can have a risk of Moto Collapse Syndrome later on if you can get a lot of good kills, especially on low availability, high impact units like, for example, SAS. Ooh, I think the Stormer, that's a CV right there. Yeah, 5 strength. But don't look at blue and red, or don't look at coalitions and just say, oh, well, I'm losing activation points and I'm losing this availability bonus. This is just crap. It's not the case. It's all trade-offs. It's all, what can I give up just a little bit in order to make the overall composition, the overall deck, that much more deadly. So that's what's going on here. That's what makes blue so good. I think red air is also considered good, although every match is a bit of a helo rush. I'm not sure of many other, I think red and mech had a heyday, but it was before my time playing the game, so I never really saw it myself if that did exist or not. And it's not something that I play, because again, this is the only mech deck that I play. But Kurnos coming in, and that's going to be some very sad Dragoner, but that's okay. That's fine. It's a damaged squad, 10-point squad, it's fine. It's better than getting struck over here where I actually was. And I think Countdown Enjoyer does eventually get wise to this, because he starts doing stuff around, and this is another big deficiency here. I had FSK and FSK trying to block aggression in on this side, but I had nothing really going around, and without that Stormer pickup here, this would have been actually a really tough position. So if there's a cap on that side, he's back to ticking +1, and then with 20 minutes left, he's getting into the whole 10 minutes at +1 territory on Mudfight, which is a very tough map to get that sort of tick, and I wasn't quite able to bring this back up. I wasn't comfortable doing that yet. My automatic is spotted. I know it's spotted. I was watching for it, but I was trying actually to bait out an ATGM, see like, if it starts to fire, I can pull this back, and we're good to go. So that was the intention. We'll see if it ends up being how it actually works, because sometimes intention and that are two different things. Now, here is the main thing that I was happy with about this game. It's not even, Alpha could have gone way better, should have gone way better, and with different force composition, I definitely think that could have been very smooth, but now we're doing what mech decks do, and we're saying, okay, we have an investment over here, let me throw 150 points and be really annoying for the point cost, because the M48's 15 points apiece, 5 frontal armor, it's not a bad deal, and yeah, I mean, a couple of them are gonna eat some ATGMs here, it's not great for me, but I'm getting established. So the M41A1's coming up here, I'm getting this stuff up here, Dragoner are getting up here, weapons teams, both sorts of RBS, the anti-air and the anti-tank, and this is a place where I'm considering capping as well, because, maybe I can. And yeah, probably not as it's currently going. I mean, geez, I've thrown away 40 points for free there just to get a little bit of zoning into Foxtrot. But consider as well, from Red's perspective, Alpha is pretty nice. There's a second cap here, so that's a lot of CVs, 5 CVs overall purchased from Countdown Enjoyer. And, well, sorry, I'm getting a call. Oh, goodness gracious, that'll have to wait. Where was I? Yeah, so if I can split his attention, if I can split his buys into Foxtrot, then I get more of an advantage here, and now we have that sort of mech engagement that I want. I have NM135, so they're autocannons, I'm getting just Gewehrman coming up here, and we're getting a lot of damage in against expensive stuff like SAS. If these FSK and Gewehrman get through, if the NM135s can support, this could be pretty nice. It will push a little farther out, we'll deal with that sort of thing as we can. And then if I can countercap Fox and Delta, and clear Alpha, I mean, it's a lot of ands, right? This is an ambitious thing, but it's one of the things that happens in Wargame the longer the match goes without success is, the conditions you need for victory escalate, right? It's why a lot of really good players want really short, really lopsided games in ranked and in competitive stuff, because frankly, that's when everything's going the best. It's where you have to take the fewest risks. So Kurnos coming in, looking for that strip BV90, and the automatic is going to try to save me. Already evac Winchester though, and that is going to be a direct hit. Dead strip BV90, not exactly ideal, and I lose the automatic to a puff. Again, not exactly ideal, and I mean, these Rangers are what we're spotting the automatic, and I just wanted to take them out. So, that was the hope. They're still alive. Lost the 103D. A little bit of desperation. This is not a clean game, right? Like, I post a lot of wins. I post some losses as well. This was a friendly game because both of us wanted to try something on Mudfight. And that's, Countdown Enjoyer also was helping me practice against Moto on Mudfight, which I think was sorely needed from how this is going. It's just, there's a lot of places where mech has advantages where I just didn't play it properly. So that's the thing. Never be ashamed of your losses, never be ashamed of the games where you look at it and you go, did I really not take advantage of this? Did I really, because that's just Wargame. Nobody wins every time. Yeah, so I don't know, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a perfectly fine thing, and looking at those losses, looking at not even just the losses, looking at the tough games can honestly, it can help you improve so much, because you figure out the things like the force composition here, like overextending here before my reinforcements caught up, stuff like that can really make a difference the next time around when you don't do those things and you have a better force composition, you take things a little bit smarter than you did the first time around, and those small differences add up really, really quickly. You don't lose those 40, 80, 90 points. They kill their equivalent later on, and all of a sudden that's a 180 point swing, right? That's a big deal. Games often end up within 200 or 300 points on kills, and that can be lopsided on conquest. So, That's fine, that's why we do this, and my thanks to Countdown Enjoyer for the friendly game, which is not yet over. We have exactly, well not exactly, we have a little under 6 minutes left in this replay, and one of two things is either going to happen. One, I give up. Two, we turn this around. So, I'm curious which one you guys think happens at the moment, especially given I just did a diatribe on losing. Oh, maybe not the best at keeping things concealed. But Retzel 20 this way, and we're fending off Red here. I think he probably could have pushed me a lot harder, but was a little bit scared by the RBS, because we did nearly pick up that Verkenning. And now he's definitely very much split attention. So everything coming in here, everything coming in there. We get the counter cap on Fox, that does stop things. I have a replacement strip EV90 for Delta. I'd want that counter cap there. And I also just want I want my opponent to have to be looking this far back, going, okay, let's micro this over here, and stuff over here dies. Okay, stuff over here died, I have to micro this over here, and stuff over in Foxtrot dies. That was the entire intention of doing this sort of entire map shove on Mudfight, right? It's like, well, I'm going forward here while I have stuff aggressive in Fox, while I'm pushing in Alpha, and it reminds me honestly of an old Stealth 17 video where he thanked his opponent for taking turns with where he's pushing, because it always gave Stealth the time to respond. Don't do that. Why do that, right? Why not just get your opponent to have to do everything at once, especially in the early game. Now, I did see that CV come in here, and we do get a cheeky CV kill, another Jeep right there. Moto brings fragile command vehicles, that's their problem. Double Amos will definitely take advantage of that. And now, Delta countercap, Fox countercapped, Alpha capped, that's that +2 I mentioned earlier. Very, very nice for us with 13-14 minutes left. That's a really solid win. The question is if I can keep it, because there's not much in Delta. There still is the M3A2, I don't think I ever killed it, and there's not a lot in Fox, so this is a fragile thing. The issue is that Red has to decide, you know, which one of these do I go for? Which one of these do I reinforce against? He has to decide, does he try to rescue Alpha, or does he push across Delta, or does he push across Foxtrot to try and sweep and clear this? And even if he does, I mean, yeah, the command vehicle, the command infantry here are valuable, but not a lot else is. And it's a tricky composition, because I have weapons teams, I have a TOW 2, I have that stuff there, so it's just annoying, is what it is. And it's one of the reasons I love ScandyMac. It's like, a lot of people look at it as, I mean, a lot of people look at mech as easy mode because you can take bad trades and still be a really tough force to push. I just think it's a part of the spec, right? It's like, well, yeah, that's true, but at the same time, I lose the explosive opener that can make games really short and lopsided that Moto does take advantage of, so it's not for free. Alright, so Commander Marine coming in here, this is what I mentioned earlier, I should have had a guard. The FSK and Stormer, I mean, one man left in the FSK also should have been healed up, but I'm trying to get away, won't be able to do it quite in time, unless, nope. So I was hoping that stun would last just a little bit longer, and it really is kind of crazy how quickly we killed this Commander Marine. If I'd been a little bit more cautious around my CV, we could have prevented that, especially because we saw that same Commander Marine retreating this way earlier on in the match. A little unfortunate, but live and learn. And with this, so, I mean, we're fending off the Buffalo's 85 here. I do have more. I mean, these guys are really damaged, but this is the thing that I find is difficult against Motos. Like, particularly against higher skill players, what you want to do is you want to keep your fragile, expensive assets alive. You want to keep things like Special Forces alive, because they cost oh so very much to call in. 35 points each, plus the Bell 204 transports. It's an expensive card. It's an expensive buy. But the thing I struggle with against Moto when I play as mech is, well, it takes me a long time to do that. It takes me a long time to reinforce, and it takes Moto a lot less time to reinforce. So it's often a tough thing to think to yourself, okay, well, I just need to pull back, wait, we'll get them next time. And sometimes it is the right decision, because these FSK, yeah, they were not useful at all. But if they had been at 20 strength, that very much could have been a different story, and bam, like that, I've lost my alpha cap, and it's been recapped for the third time by my opponent. So, I mean, this was a scrap. This was a really fun game. It's taken me a while to upload it, actually. I think Countdown Enjoyer and I did this, like, very nearly last month, or early this month. Yeah, so it was a while ago. It was a fun game, though, and I think Countdown Enjoyer is also known as Noonan. Solid guy. Solid wargame player. And, okay, so we have, now comes the push over in Foxtrot, and this is the thing, like, this TOW 2 is the anchor here, because I didn't have the points to spare, mostly because of rebuying the CV in Delta, and also trying to sort this stuff out. Bell 204 is a little bit of a desperation move, but you'd never believe, you know, sometimes those little guns can do the most stuff, and yeah, I mean, that's what I was hoping for here. We get all the way around, just looking for that CV, because if I can find it, then I can hit it with the Amos, Or, actually, did I lose the Amos? No, they're, yeah, okay. Fob plus Amos is a little bit weird, but I wanted to try using them and actually resupplying them. It's just a heavy investment at the start. So I was hoping to find them and hit that CV for the 3rd time if I could. And the really strange thing is that I didn't even really need to. So we have Peace Pheasant 2s, Puffs, all that stuff looking to get kills here. I'm bringing in a replacement Tow 2, Block 15 to fend that off, and the Bell 204 finds the command Jeep here. And with that little, you know, rinky-dink MG3, actually takes him out. So, you know, 5 strength on armored CVs. I think after this, a couple of us in the call pointed out to Countdown Enjoyer that that blue moto can take the 10 strength Jeep, which makes a big difference. But yeah, that's a decap there. 9 minutes, 45 seconds left in the game. We've held just barely in Fox, we've held in Alpha, and that is going to be a concede for my opponent, 27-25 to 21-10. And a lot of that, I think, was in the later part of the game, because in the early and mid game, definitely had some trouble. Sorry for clearing my throat a lot. I think I have a bit of a cough, you know, getting back from Thanksgiving travel and all of that, and going through airports and something like that. I just got a bit of a cough somewhere, so I'm going to try and edit those out best I can. Other than that, highlight units are going to be things like the automatic that scored a Hornet and a Kurnos kill, very nice. There, that was that central automatic that I failed to keep alive later on. And then things like Stormer, especially those that got through in the beginning, killing a CV, killing all this sort of stuff is very, very nice. And yeah, I don't know, I like FSK. I think I might switch back, but honestly, I'm getting some good use out of these guys. I think it's maybe a case of dealer's choice. FSK might be slightly worse at that dedicated, you know, how many Erics can you bring sort of role. But they have their benefits as well. Alright, well that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you all for hanging around, and we'll see you again real soon.